At All People's Church, missional communities are our primary avenue of how we are trying to make disciples. All Christians everywhere, all churches, our mission is to make disciples. And as you know, it's to make disciples in everyday life while helping others do the same. That's our call, to follow Jesus in everyday life. But how do we actually do that? Are we just saying that? The way we do that is through missional communities. What are missional communities, or in other words, MCs? Missional community is a mid-size family of missionary servants who have committed to making disciples by doing two things. One, loving one another like a family, and two, loving a specific area or people group through word and deed. Now, I know that's a mouthful, but let me break that down in piece by piece and show you the beauty of missional communities and why we've centered our whole church around this idea of a missional community. Well, first of all, a missional community is that a community. That's first and foremost what an MC is. Before anything, it's a community. It's a community of members who love Jesus, who want to love him more, who want to become like him. So they're committed to making disciples of one another and become all that Christ has for us. And the beauty of it is it's a mid-sized group. It's a mid-sized group that's small enough to care, but large enough to dare. Let me explain what that means. In the New Testament, we see over 50 plus one another commandments. However, most of these commandments are impossible to fulfill at a normal Sunday gathering, and most of our mindset of church is Sunday. And so if that's our primary context of church and where life happens, we're going to be severely limited and discouraged from obeying all that Christ has called us to do. And so a missional community is a people you're committed to rather than an event that you attend. So you actually never go to an MC, you're part of an MC. And in this missional community, these are the people that you are going to prioritize out of the other people in the church. Not never care about other people in church, but in a larger size of church of people, you can't equally bear everyone's burdens the same. So what a missional community does is it breaks up our church into almost bite-sized pieces of people that you can say, you know what, I can't care for everybody, but I can care for these people. I'm going to prioritize these people. And I'm also going to rearrange my life and try to overlap my life with them so we can do life together. And as we know that Jesus' way of discipleship was, he did teach, he did have these big group meetings, but most of it was in this kind of mid-sized 12 guys where he would talk about life and teach them the way, his way, as they did life together, as they served together, as they laughed together, as they ate, as they cried, as they failed. And that's where we believe discipleship is most effectively happens, and it's in the day-to-day life. And that's why we're trying to organize our church where people can do life together in this doable size of people. But it's also large enough to dare. See, this small size, you can care for one another because everyone can know each other intimately, but also it's large enough so that if there's things going on in each other's lives, we're a large enough group to be able to handle and absorb maybe a tragedy or a challenge. You know, if there's someone who gets sick, you know, and if there's only 2 or 3 people in a group, that can bury that group. That would consume them to truly care for them as they ought to be careful. But with a larger group, a mid-sized group, you have the ability for different people to take turns. You have the ability for some people who are maybe busier with a season at work or at school, where they're kind of just receiving and they're not giving as much, you know? And that's the beauty of a mid-sized group, is that there's always gonna be times where people are gonna be at higher capacity and lower capacity. People who maybe they're in a season of life where they're just able to give and have lots of time, and other people, they barely can breathe and they're just treading water. And the missional community can come alongside and help those who are just treading water and free and release and empower those who have more time. And so it's this beautiful size that can do a lot of different things and yet be healthy. And so first and foremost, a missional community is a family of servant missionaries. Now, the second piece that we are committed to as a missional community is in making disciples is number 2, loving a specific area or people group through word and deed. Every missional community is committed to a common, or also called a shared mission. What that means is that every group commits to caring about a specific people group or partnering with some sort of ministry or some geographical area that they're going to especially target as missionaries. So they're going to go in with the mindset of missionaries. What are the needs? What's the context? What are the idols? What are the ways that the gospel can be good news to the people through word and deed? So we proclaim the gospel, but we also demonstrate the gospel with action. And we meet tangible needs oftentimes. every common mission we encourage at APC to focus on the forgotten four, and that's the foreigner, the widow, the orphan, the poor. And these four are the ones that are forgotten, right? Forgotten four. They're the ones that in most of our lives, they are forgotten. They're not overlapping with our normal rhythms and our job and so forth. And so these are the people that all of us typically say that we care for, but historically, we don't actually care for. And so this is a way for us to prioritize and put our money where our mouth is, really, put our schedules and our priorities in line. And so every missional community commits to some sort of people group. So for mine particularly, we're partnering with Arrive Ministries, caring immigrant families. In the Twin Cities, we have a huge immigrant population, so there's a huge opportunity for the gospel to infiltrate people groups that have very little witness of the gospel among them. And because they're immigrants, often they have great physical need too. And so we can show the love of Jesus in the name of Jesus through word and deed, and especially deed for these people. And so that's one example of how we use common mission. Now, what it's important to know is that because we're a mid-sized group, we have the ability for some people to be more proactive and some people to be more supportive, depending on season of life, and maybe they're more inhaling and some are more exhaling. What I mean by that is maybe somebody's in the midst of a really busy semester. They can still be part of it, but maybe at a more dialed back level. And so this shouldn't be a burden, but a blessing for us. And there's other people who maybe have more capacity who can do a lot more and be more involved. But everybody in the MC is involved at some level, whether it's through prayer or some sort of supportive thing, or they're right there in the front lines caring for the family or the people group or whatever it is. So that's something really important to note. Another nuance to mention is that this is not opposed to the day-to-day mission opportunities God gives us. All of us, wherever we work, play, and live, have opportunities with unbelieving family members or friends or coworkers that we deeply want to see the treasure Jesus is, and we want them to trust Jesus. And so this is not to say we don't care about these people. It's not either or, but both and. The reason we have a shared common mission is because it's prioritizing people that are often hungry for truth. They're in ways poor in spirit. They're not the rich man who is hard to enter the kingdom of heaven. They're people who are longing. So we want to go after and care for those people and prioritize people who are actually knowing that they're needy and they need help. And because Jesus so clearly cares about them and God cares about them throughout the Bible, he cares about these people. And so we want to prioritize the heart of God while at the same time not neglecting other people that we care about also. But what we found is that when we are actively caring about the common mission that God has given us, it catalyzes and it fuels the day-to-day mission, because it gives us opportunities to build up these kind of missional muscles where the more you do something, the more you're prone to do it. And so if you start sharing the gospel with people and start serving them, you know what that does? It starts expanding your heart and it gives you an ability to care for more people. And so all of a sudden you'll find that at work, you're going to start seeing needs that you normally wouldn't see, that maybe we become blind to and callous towards. Or maybe start talking to someone that you normally wouldn't because you'd be uncomfortable. And so this common mission is a great training ground that catalyzes as we see all these different gifts being used in different parts of the body, and that we inspire one another, we challenge one another, and together we're making disciples together. And that's the final thing I really want to say. Missional Community is trying to decentralize this idea of making disciples primarily in services and doing it one-on-one, right? But we're doing it together as a community. Every single person that God has taught us in his word has different gifts, different things that if every person is playing their part, we'll be healthy. But often what we do is we've created a system and created a culture that really just encourages a few people to use their gifts. But what we want to do is we want to give permission and equip our whole people, all our people, to contribute to making disciples of one another and also of those in the world. So that's missional communities. And we want you to join a missional community and thrive together, weep together, rejoice together, do life together, and share the love of Jesus with the world together.